today's session, it's going to be more of a concept oriented to all the concepts that are required to understand level of detail calculation. Shravan, can you hear me?
Yeah, there is some break actually in your voice. So right now it's very it's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Let me know if it continues. Yeah. So so what I'm saying is, from now on we'll calculate on table calculations. Today's session is especially focused on helping us understand why we require LOD expressions, what are the basic concepts that we need to know to understand the level of detail calculations. We'll explore them, and then we'll see what different types of LODs we have in Tableau, and we'll see quick examples on each one of them. And in the upcoming sessions, what we'll do is we'll explore these individual LOD expressions in detail. Let me know if you have any questions on understanding any certain concept in today's session, so we can clear that out. Okay. So before we start getting into LOD calculations and expressions, we need to understand two things in Tableau. That is granularity and aggregation. So what I mean by granularity and aggregation, let me just open a new sheet. So I'm using global superstore data, and if you see here, let me actually go to the sample one, and I'll just drop sales into text. Okay, and it's giving me overall sales for all the years, all the products, everything. Now I can you might be familiar with all these basic concepts, but just to keep the transparency among all the candidates, I'm just briefly going through all these things. So I have a category, and I've created already a hierarchy for all these things. Now my overall sales is split up in these categories. As I drill down, my sales is split up into different products, manufacturer, and etc. So what I'm doing here is I'm at this level. So at this level, I'm seeing the data at a highly aggregated level. So my aggregation is to the topmost. Do I have any details? Like, for example, from this number, I cannot tell, hey, what are the sales in category furniture? I cannot tell that. What are the sales from the state of, let's say, New York? I cannot tell that. So the details are missing here. So this is low level of detail. So we don't have any details here. But when we go across this and add a category, I have some amount of detail. I can tell sales at a category level. So I have some amount of detail, and I am increasing in level of details. My level of detail is increasing. This is also called as granularity. So my data is getting more granular and granular. My overall sales is getting split up into at a granular levels. So each of these things that we see, the level of details is called the detail thing is called as a either it's called a granularity or a level. Now, correspondingly, your aggregation keeps on changing. So, for example, here I had a higher level aggregation data. I have lower detail and higher aggregation. When I go deeper into aggregate level of detail or more granular, my aggregation tends to decrease. My aggregation becomes lower aggregated data, and likewise and so on. So there's a chart that's simple. So this particular image will explain the same correspondence between granularity and aggregation. So think of it as this way. So I will come to which level detail and etc. So at this point in time, let's assume there is some measure that we are looking at, and that is viewed at a dimension 1 in certain dimension. Upon adding dimensions, okay, my granularity is increasing. My granularity increases, and when I have less, so that is the level of detail increasing, and when I have less number of dimensions or no dimensions, my aggregation is high, my aggregation is more. So I'm going down in aggregation and I'm going increasing in granularity as I keep on adding my dimensions to the view. Let's come back to this in the during the session. So that's clear, right? So the aggregation and granularity. Now let's take a look at some example using the granularity and aggregation that we just saw. Most of you might be familiar with this, but again, just to keep transparency, I'm going through this. Now I just wrote a simple calculation field. So in the data I have, what I have is, I have sales column and I have a profit column. Okay, if I go to the data source, okay, as you can see the data here, here we have each row. So this why I came here was we have to understand, we broadly saw there are different levels of aggregation on the demo that we just saw, and the data source itself is at a certain level and that cannot be changed. So that is the level. So for example, each row here represents we know this dataset very well. So what it is it's a particular product in a certain order. If so that represents a certain row. So that is the level of detail of the data source. So that is one thing that we need to remember. So all of the calculations that we write without using LOD expressions will be done at a row level. Those are called row level calculations. So that means they work at the level of detail of the data source. Whatever the detail that the granularity your data source is at, your calculations will work at that level. So I wrote a profit ratio calculation. It's simply, can you guys see the calculation?
Yeah, we can. Profit by sales.
Yeah, it's simply profit by sales. Now it's doing that for every, since I didn't mention any level of detail using LODs or anything, it's just calculating for every row. Now here I have another calculated field edit. I just modified it in a certain way that before, instead of mentioning profit by sales, I mentioned some profit by some sales. So what I'm doing is, before you divide these two things, just aggregate them and then divide it. So at this point, since we are looking at a row level, so the values are same, because here the profit is only getting one row and some sales is also getting one row, one value. So these two values match. Now let's go to the sheet. Now here I have a simple setup. What it does is, I have both the calculated fields here, and let me go to a level of detail of data source. Okay, this is my row ID. So each row is a particular row in a data source. So all my values match up. So this calculation and this calculation matches up. Now, but when I drill down to subcategory, if you can see, my ratio is never supposed to go across over 1. So, but here, where we didn't provide the aggregation, you can see it's just crossing 1 and it's giving us stupid values. These values doesn't make any sense. So it's because of the aggregation, order of aggregation. So here, what it's doing is basically it's calculating the ratio and then aggregating on the top of that. So all the numbers that we saw, for example, these numbers, it's calculating these ratios and adding all these things, and thereby, so it's a 0.2. That means if you have 0.5 0.2s, it will simply cross 1. So that's not, that's why we are getting numbers that are greater than all these numbers. But here the order of aggregation is reversed. We are not aggregating so we are not calculating the ratio directly. First we are aggregating and then calculating the ratio. That's why ratio is always less than, this is so less than 1, and this is the right number to see. So yeah, so one thing is, so this also brings us to another concept. We just saw level of detail of the data source, right? Now this number, what is this number? This number is being calculated. I know this is aggregated, but at what level it is aggregated at? It is aggregated at bookcases level in furniture, and likewise all other categories. How does it how does this calculation know that it has to aggregate at a bookcase level? There is other this brings us to the first level of detail, which is Viz LOD. So it's called a Viz LOD. So your whatever the visualization that you make, the view, it will be at a certain level of detail. Here the level of detail of the visualization is at the bookcase. So it's basic aggregation and calculating all these things at the level of detail of the view. So far we have two levels. One is data source level and the Viz level detail. Now what if think of a situation where,
one quick question, Jagdish, sorry to interrupt you. So so are you saying that whenever we write a function, a calculated field, it is always at a level of detail of the Viz? Is that what you're saying?
No. So we just saw two things here. It will, if the calculation will work at the level of detail or at the data level.
At what?
In the data source, as we saw here, profit ratio, at the level of detail of the data source.
Okay, got it. At the level of detail of the data source, that's what it. Okay, got it. That's why you have the sum profit aggregated into more than one, right? So that is one. But this one, so what you have here, this did not
here it was
aggregate. Okay, and but here it is a simple formula, right? Which is sum profit divided by sum sales, right?
Yeah,
so
it's just the
aggregate.
It's just the difference between these two is it's just the difference in the order of aggregation. Order of aggregation here, what we are doing here, if you can see here, we got sum of the ratios, but we are not taking the sum of ratios. We are actually summing them first and then taking the ratio.
Got it.
If you see this number and this number,
so
both.
I'm trying to understand what.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to understand what is the underlying principle that we should take away. That's what I'm trying to get at.
So the first thing to take away from this point is to understand that there are two levels. One is the data source level, and there is a view level. View. This is also called LOD, view level of detail. And the other thing to take away from is the order of aggregation matters. If you aggregate first or later.
Okay, excellent, perfect, got it, understood.
So
when you did aggregate, right? I think maybe one thing here is when you did aggregate, which is some profit divided by some sales, right? And then you did so at that time it will show at the level of Viz. Is that a takeaway that we can take? I'm just trying to understand.
Both of them are currently showing at a level of detail of the Viz only. So just because the first column is showing wrong values, we cannot say that it's not working at the level of detail of the view. It is working at the level of detail of the view, but it's just showing the number that which we are not interested in. It is not the right number.
Got it.
So if you see what this thing is doing is this number is getting by after dividing this by this, which is what we want, which is sales of this bookcases, but this number is something else, which is got actually by dividing. If you see, so profit ratios. So for each row level, you understood, right? So basically,
No,
it
I
takes
got
the
it. I got it. Yeah, I got it.
So both of them are working at a level of detail of the view only.
Yeah.
By default, whatever the calculation that you put, if it is aggregated in the calculation itself, it will work. It will work at the level of detail of the view. If it's not aggregated at the level of detail, by default Tableau aggregates it. If you can see the sum here.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
By default, Tableau aggregates it to the level of detail of the view.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Yeah.
Okay.